All right, guys, how we doing? Happy Friday to all you devils out there. Sam here with you. 31st of January. I'm kind of latter part of the day here. Good time for a Bitcoin update, considering the price movement we've had. Before we get to that, I watched that intro promo piece roll, and I have mixed emotions. Partly, I'm so excited to show it to people, but I have mixed emotions because I have such an enormous workload to do before the launch. Is we are now here. We're inside 11 days until the official launch. So those of you wondering where I've been, because we've been producing far fewer videos, it's because we're reworking and rewriting and re-recording all of the course content. Partly just to improve upon it. Secondly, to update it. One of the areas that we put a whole lot of attention that I've been spent the last 2 weeks on is we're on the white belt, and for a couple of reasons. One, it needed it. Two, now it'll be included here both in social and the free membership. So if you're coming down here and you're thinking about, I'm kind of interested, maybe one of these would be good for me. Well, the introductory course, which we would term the white belt course, will be included with both social and free. Right, so it's a close to 20 video course. A lot of detail, a lot of information. I mean, we could bundle that up and sell it as a course for hundreds of dollars right now. I mean, it's really put a lot of time and effort into it. And I think you guys will appreciate that when you see it. Hopefully some of you will see it. But that's where we've been. So I just would, draw your attention to this because we're getting down to the wire here. And the thing that I want to just encourage you to consider, if you've ever been on the fence about joining us here, is you still have time to become an original member, right? And we're giving you a pretty remarkable incentive here if you're interested in a multi-month subscription or membership, perhaps just say it that way. So we're giving you some real advantages here, but the real kicker is that you'll be grandfathered in. You'll lock in at these price points, so regardless of any price hikes that come in the future, or any new material, new courses, new indicators, anything new, you're locked in, right? Never be an increase in your price. All of that will be available to you. So this is a huge bonus, huge. If you've been on the fence about it, that's something to think about. Okay, with all of that said, right, if you're interested, it's, right, you're not making any commitment here. I've mentioned this in a couple of videos. All you're doing, right, if you click that, all you're doing is getting on the list, right? Well, two things. One, you're getting on the list so we can send you the invite to TradeDevils 2.0. But more than that, we're also going to give you an affiliate link. Right? So if you have liked it, wanted to refer people in your network, your universe, right? Well, we'll give you a little kicker, a little compensation, up to $50 a person. Should you use that referral link, it would be attached to you for life. So now or in the future, anytime you refer someone, put a link to a Twitter post or use a video or any of your social media, we will pay you for that referral. All right, so with all of that said, let's get over to Bitcoin because it's getting pretty interesting now. So here's my primary account. I've been working this for, it's been a long time now since. I remain, cautious because of this section here. We've been through this a couple of times. It's, at this point here, given the price action that we're seeing here, this is becoming, I mean, it's starting to look like we're going to have to accept this as an ABC, even though I'm still a little cautious about it. It reads much better as a 5 than a 3, yet if this is going to keep going, and given the price action here, it looks like this is what we're going to live with, right? So I'm a bull and long as hell, so I'm not disappointed here. I'm pleasantly relieved to see this because I had been considering one of the possibilities here is that we had an A, B, and we had a C going in here before we went down. So we'd have had another expanded flat. So much like this one where we had the expanded B wave up into the C, it occurred to me that this was reasonably another possibility here, and of course still possible that we would come down here, although the Elliott work here is implying higher prices, not lower, or that we've completed anything, particularly as you break into the subdivision, right? But it's always just probabilities and a sense of the context of the market structure here. So we can't eliminate that possibility, but it does now look like we're going to be planning the Z here. You'll recall that's logarithmically, that's right at a 50. So if we're going to go up, we'll be back here looking at this saying, okay, well, I didn't see it, but I guess we'll have to dig out the ugly force fit here for the C, because that's still, to my eye, looks like it's a 3, right? So I remain cautiously optimistic here, but this price action, particularly given the little kick that we're getting here, is very encouraging. So I know you can't see in the subdivision here, but I thought it was worthwhile noting this set of median lines, how we've just hugged that all the way up. And we had a golden corner in the midst of it as well. So it's been very technical, although, you know, Bitcoin is always a little tricky because of the, you know, wicks like this. So it's been some chop, and it hasn't been easy trading, and rarely is it easy trading in terms of short-term trading in Bitcoin. I think it's always challenging. Not that people aren't doing quite well with it, but I think it's always challenging. So let's say it that way. So from our low here, if we're going to hang on to the idea that this is a Z now coming up, well, let's break into that a little bit and see if we can make sense of what we've got to work with here. So let me get this. Let's just hide. Oh no, I don't want to do that. I want to hide that so we can just get a better look in here. Okay, so let's just do it this way. Let's do it this way first. Okay, so this has been, you know, so this is a challenging count here for Ellioticians. I think it counts best here. So when you look at it, right, see, it's frustrating because your eye looks at it and you want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? What's the big deal? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? You can just looking at the pivots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What's so complicated? Well, this little bugger right there fucks that all up. Right? You cannot have that overlap. So it forces you, right? That's non-negotiable. Now, yeah, as soon as I say that. There are those that will suggest to you that given the leverage factor here and people trading on margin and leverage to the hilt, that kind of wick here is allowable. And even, you know, Ellioticians and educators in leverage markets will allow for that to some degree. So if that's the count that you're working with and allowing for that, you know, I understand your thinking there. I would beg to differ with you here because I can count this as an impulse here. I think what's more likely is that we have a 5, 3, 5, 3, 5 leading diagonal. So thereby we don't violate any Elliott rule set here by working it as a leading diagonal, allowing for this overlap. I think, you know, again, it's always about probabilities here. I think to make that accommodation to this because it's inconvenient to your count is a mistake. It's my view, right? Feel free to differ with me, because if you're trading this, right, it does make more sense, right? It would be easier if I could get the 4 here, right? Because given the shallowness of the retracement, you're dying to do it, right? This would be just perfect, right? Between the 23 and the 38, got the little low volume node. Wouldn't that be just the perfect place to put the 4? Right? You can't dig an impulse out of there. Can't do it, right? From here to here, you cannot, well, I mean, unless you want to violate rule set, you can't get an impulse in there. Can't do it. Believe me, I've tried. So you're left with the 53535 diagonal for a 1 wave. All right, so means we have to live with the shallow retracement in the 2. Now we you know, it's interesting, right? So because I just finished the S&P 500 video, it's the same condition here. We have, depending on how you're counting it, right? There's not only so many ways to count it within the S&P, but you're stuck with back-to-back shallow 2s. Same thing here. If this indeed is going to hold as our leading diagonal, we got to live with this very shallow 2. So it leaves you with a little bit of caution there, thinking, you know, I know that 2 is more probable down here, right? It would be a perfect 4, but given the count, I've got to go with it, right? It's the deductive reasoning, right? So it's, you know, you're eliminating all the possibilities here. So because of that, by adhering to rules and guidelines here, you are forced into putting the 2 here, which I know, right? So you don't want to do it, but yet there it is. So if we stay with this and stay disciplined with our Elliott application here, then that's our 2. So coming off of that, now it gets a little squirrely here. So we get 1 and another very deep 2. Now it does look like I can get an impulse here to complete that. So it's close, right? 3 is just a bit. I get down to here. Right. Yeah, so which was this side. There it is. So here's 3. So 3 is longer than 1. 5 is longer than 3, but I can still work an impulse here. Remember, 3 doesn't need to be the longest, just can't be the shortest. So 3 is, we're kind of in between the 38 and the 618, but I've got a contender there for a 3, little choppy 4 here, so it looks like an ABC. Now, I know it's getting a little iffy for the subdivision here. I am out on a 3 hour. But we can dig the 5th out of that to give us a 3. Now coming down, so what we're watching for here is what's happening next, because the count is implying much higher prices. So let's take that off. Okay, if indeed, let's get that off here. So if indeed we have the 2 here, and I've gone 1, 2, 3, and I'm seeking the 4 here. Well, let's just tee it up from our low. If we are indeed seeking the 4 here. Well, of course, just some natural structure right here. It's hard to ignore that, right? So you can see 1, 2, 3 times they've tagged that and it's held. Note the right. You see the low volume note here, right? Because there's no market acceptance there. Come up to it, rejected, got through it, come back, tested. So you get this just perfect little divot over here of low volume, no market acceptance. Now it doesn't mean we can't get through it, but you can see that it's being tested and it's holding. Right, just the structure. So buyers here are defending here. They don't want to go below that, so they're going to hold there. Now, more likely, you'd anticipate something a little bit deeper to come down here, so 30 to the 50, anywhere in that range, before heading up for the 5. But if this completes, now emphasis, if this completes here, it sure as hell isn't the 3. Right? If this is the 1, 2, what does that leave? Right? Only possibility is here that we'd have another 1. Which is awfully bullish, right? So if this is 1 shallow 2, and then we're going yet again, and this is just going to be the 1 of the 3rd, well, bulls just got a little blood flow to the groinal region, because that is extremely bullish, right? So let's pull back out, right? So if that's the case, let's consider it. All right, let me take this one off. Okay, if this is 1, 2. From the low. If that's the 1, right, perfectly valid contender for 1. Well, there's 100% of the 1, right? So for this to be a 3, now where's the high probability zone? We're way the hell up here, right? So that's what do we got here? So let's dial it in specifically. Between 1618 and 175, that's 12, 7, and 13 and change. Okay, let's maybe we go. Let's go back out to an 8 hour. All right, let's see if we can put that progression together. Well, so that would imply here that assuming we're going to go up and we're going to finish this motive wave, and at the moment it looks like it would be an impulse, we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get us to the 3rd, right? Assuming we're going to get to our high probability zone. Nothing says we must go there, but if you were going to project, that's what you're looking at. So this just becomes the 1, 2. Now, again, I'm projecting here. We don't have this, but if we're working backwards from the count, here's the key to the whole thing. If that's the 2. If that's the 2, and this is, and indeed, right, so I'm not going to be proven wrong, right? So wouldn't be the first time, but if this is going to end up trading as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and people are going to allow for this, and we're going to end up with a condition here that would be a violation. But again, right, we're in that iffy section here based on that overlap. If this is going to trade as a 5, well, it's still it would change the depth of the retracement here. If indeed you're going to end up putting the 1 here, which I think is less likely, right? Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible, but I'd be only going there if forced to based on the depth of this retracement. But if that does happen, it still implies higher prices for the 3. It's just a question of how deep a retracement here can we anticipate if indeed the 1 is already in. Because now we'd be looking at it here saying, okay, well, I got a shallow 2, right? It's not like it's never happened before. So if I'm going to come down here, something in that range here to get a 50 to a 618, well, there's your next opportunity. So first, we got to complete the motive here. We got to, in this case, if it's going to hold, we got to complete the impulse and then wait for the 2 to come down here to give us the next buying opportunity. And you can kind of just draw in, right? You can kind of see how something like that would fit rather nicely there. Well, of course, we also have the set of median lines, but if I'm just going to use traditional Elliott channeling here, something in this neighborhood would be ideal. Again, I don't have the 5. I don't actually have the 4 either. So 4, 4, 5. I'm just hypothetical here. If I come into that zone, oh boy, I'd be paying attention there, right? So that would be an opportunity because you could trade it. You put a stop under the 65. I mean, you could be tighter than that with the stop, right? So it's unusual for a wave 4 to come down below the 65, right? Highest probability is between 38 and the 50. So that's a reasonable place for a stop. So you want to be more aggressive. You could be looking between the 38 and the 50, and maybe a stop. You'd have to use some sort of a structure, one of these pivots, something to give you, so that you're not just trading your wallet, right? So you're not just doing dollars and cents. You'd look to trade something that you could use, where you could use structure rather than just trade the market, not your wallet. But you've got to be mindful of the amount of risk that you're putting on here, so that might influence whether or not you're trading with leverage. Just common sense in terms of how much risk. Because remember, if indeed, right, this is going to end up as the 1, which due to that overlap, I think is less likely. But if that's the case, if it's, let's see if I can get these off here. If that's going to trade as the 1, well, then the 2 is going to be more likely to be deeper, which means you potentially the retracement goes this deep. Now we're back down to 8,200. Now that's a big assumption, right? Again, assuming the 1 is here. So that's why if you were looking here, you don't want to give that too much room, because if the count ends up being wrong here, and we're gonna have a 2, and this is gonna end up as a motive wave here with this is the 1, well, you don't want to ride all of that down. Even though it's still bullish, that's way too much to take on any one trade. That would just be foolish. So there's an opportunity to participate here, but I'd be very disciplined about that stop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now 4, 5. So let's put that in some larger context, because what's important is to look at how that's going to play relative to these pivots that we've got to work with here. So let's take some of this off here. Let's get all of this off of here just so we can see it a little bit better. Okay, let's go back to the count that we think is more likely. Okay, so as we have that, all right, so first thing we got to look at is the resistance along the way. Okay, so you can see in here, you can see, well, look, we can't, so you can see the algo participating here. All right, so from this pivot, you can see it here. I know it's a little crowded to see. There's the 50 reaction. Now we go up golden zone. We hover, we bounce. Now they get through the golden zone. Right, so this resistance point, this algorithm is stopped out, but of course we know that we just have to go back to the next pivot, right? Because remember, an algorithm is not looking at the subdivision. All an algorithm is seeing is this: swing low, swing high. All right, so look what happens here. We go right to the golden zone. We tag it. We start down, right? But we get and that's what creates the 2, the proposed shallow wave 2 here. Look at all the volume, right? And plenty of volume there to support it. And now we're going up here, and again, as I'm implying, that looks like 3, 4, 5 still to come. Okay, so we get golden zone, retrace, now we're through, right? Interesting. All right, so looking better and better for bulls. So from here, now we go here. Now where are we? All right, we're right at the 50. And we're through the 50, right? You see the nice big fat volume node here as we're struggling here. You can see how that's, just to bring it over. Like, what's that all about, right? So look at all this resistance here. Now we've gotten through it. All right, we got through it, and now we're getting a little retrace here, but you can understand why here. There's lots of buyers and sellers, lots of market acceptance here, bulls and bears fighting it out there. So at this point, until we get through this golden zone here, you're capped by the idea here that if this is going to come up here, we're going to complete. Wouldn't that just be just where you might anticipate it? So that 5th up here, that 5th at the golden zone would not surprise. Well, I'd be anticipating it. At the very least, we can say there's going to be resistance here. Look at all the volume. Look at all the volume here. There's going to be resistance there. Of course, doesn't mean we can't get through it. But where's the big one? So let's get you off of here. All right, there's only one left. That's the big one. All right, so it puts us up here at 11.3 and change here on Binance. So if we're going up to do that, well, again, if this is the 1, 2, 3, 4 new highs. Well, pardon me. New highs relative to that swing, because that swing is 13.9 and change here. We'd be looking to get up here to well, you'd be setting up a double top right there. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, right? So that would be, so if that were the case, if you were going to have 1, 2, Jesus, 1, 2, 3, this would still be, yeah, let's get it over here. This would be the 4, 5. So this would be 1, 2, 1, 2. Oh, pardon me. This would be off here. So this would be the 3. I had it right the first time. Okay. So if this is 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gives me the third up here, and we can put it in that context. We know that'd be close to our 1, 6, 1, 8. So something along those lines, 3, 4, 5. Now we've got 3, 4. Now we're going up here, pushing the 2, 6, 1, 8. Now we're at 15, 6. Now let's remember, let's not get ahead of ourselves, because while this is encouraging, this resistance from this pivot, swing high to swing low right here. Now we're not there yet, but that is going to be stiff resistance, right? That's the last stand for bears. Now I bring that to your attention just to remind you of this. All right, I'm sure from our all-time high, you guys will recall this. Right? Looked like we were off to the moon, right? What did we run into? Let's get it right on there. What did we run into? The 65. Now, interestingly, look how that lines up here. So don't assume anything until we get through that 65, because this looked like, oh, we are getting through. We are getting through. What was that? June of 19. 6 months through all of this madness. Now we're back to challenge. So, but until we get through the absolute all the way, the big one, we ain't in the clear yet. All right, so as it relates to this pivot going down, here's now our 65, which is sitting there at 11,368 on Binance. That's the big one we got to get through. Going to be interesting to watch. All right, guys, there you go. Plenty to chew on there. Let's see, back to the... It'd be interesting to see how this resolves, and it's also interesting in the context of what's happening in the global economy and the stock indexes. Getting slapped pretty hard today. It's going to be interesting to see how Bitcoin responds in the face of that volatility. All right, guys, there you go. All right, so we'll kind of wrap it there. Again, keep in mind, right, coming soon. Right, we're 11 days before 2.0 is coming. So if you're interested, now's the time to reach out to us. And it's as simple as just getting on that list so we can send you the invite when it launches. All right, guys, have a great weekend. We'll be working all weekend long, working on 2.0. So we're really excited to show it to you. So patience. All right, talk to you guys later.